Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on our presentation evening this evening. With any luck, we have the wonderful Helen Bryon lurking around somewhere. At present, she is smiling, as always, but muted. But there we are. Now she's not. Hey, look, it's great to have everybody on board. We've got lots of people joining us this evening as usual, so thank you very, very much. We really do appreciate it. And they're here only for you, Helen. That's it. They're not interested in India. They just want to hear you talking about amazing places around the world.
With that, hey. So there we
go. So you've just come back from Galapagos, right?
I have. Yes, a week ago. Absolutely amazing. So yes, it was basically a preparation for a trip that I'm going to be leading out there in April next year and also in April 2025. And I am somewhat bowled over. I know I tend to get a bit enthusiastic about most places, but I have to say, swimming with marine iguanas, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And turtles,
was that the best bit?
Sharks, and everything else, and volcanoes, and just like it's just all round wow.
Was that the best bit? Swimming with marine iguanas?
Yes. Yeah. We'd had a talk about them from our onboard naturalist, and he described them as being the inspiration for Godzilla. And I'll tell you, when you're snorkeling along in the Pacific Ocean, and then you lift your head up, and you're suddenly face to face with a miniature Godzilla, you're like, oh my God, it's so true.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? I have to say, I'm like you. I'm very lucky to travel to lots of different places, and I've snorkeled all different places around the world, and been able to scuba dive in 1-2 places. The most incredible hour in the water, I think, was last year on one particular occasion when I was doing exactly as you've just described, but basically snorkeling with marine iguanas, and you're breathing in so you didn't jump into turtles and things like that.
Our first jump into the water, and we had white tip sharks below us, we had a turtle next to us, and then a couple of penguins just whizzed by, and you're like, okay, welcome to the Galapagos. But anyway, we digress, as always.
Experience. But hey, we're not here to talk about the Galapagos, although I'm sure we could talk for hours about the Galapagos. We're here to talk about India, right? The wildlife highlight. The wildlife highlight from incredible India, because it is incredible India, with the lovely Helen. So Helen, in a couple of seconds, I am going to dip out, as you know, and then I'll come back. We'll have question and answer session at the end, which I hopefully is okay with you.
Yep.
For everybody that's on board this evening, and there are many of you, as usual, and thank you very much for being on board. Those of you that are in Northern Europe, and by that I mean Italy in this particular case, I suspect we probably have 1 or 2 people in various other parts of the world as well, not just the UK, but we do very much appreciate you being here. Please don't forget to ask us questions. We have a chat facility, which is at the bottom of your screen. I think if you're on a PC or a laptop, or if you're on a handheld device, I think it's at the top. So we have both chat and Q&A. And of course, as usual, we will ask you a question at the end about possible future trips. So HB, over to you. I shall dip out. I shall enjoy watching your wonderful presentation and listen to you talk passionately about India, as you always do. I'll see you shortly.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Well, we'll see you in about half an hour, 40 minutes, Mr. B. But in the meantime, yes, thank you very, very much for giving up your evening once again. I can't believe it's a week ago that we were just waxing lyrical about Brazil. And now it is time for incredible India. Now, the title of this talk is quite deliberate. Wildlife Highlight. This talk is about you. Many of you have travelled with us on numerous occasions, and many of you have travelled with us to India. And tonight is really a roundup, post-COVID, if you like. It curtailed a number of wonderful trips that we launched during the pandemic. And now in the last year, they have finally been able to happen. So first and foremost, I would like to thank Rob German and Diane Fennick. They're currently in the wilds of an island in the Indian Ocean. So I doubt they're listening right now, but this incredible image was taken by them on their Nagarhole trip early this year. And I'm going to be using a lot of images from you. I've been somewhat overwhelmed when I was asked to contact many of you and just ask if you'd be happy for us to use our images. Well, there's 150 of them to come, so enjoy. This is your fault, not ours. So, a roundup of the last year from incredible and sensational India. Now, you might be expecting a tiger to be our cover image. It is that most iconic of Indian mammals. But I'm actually going to start off by talking about a trip where seeing tiger is simply not possible. Niet, no, nada, no tiger, no tiger on this particular trip whatsoever. But although tigers are an undisputed draw to India's incredible wildlife, and as I've said on numerous occasions before, we have to remember that this is a subcontinent. It's not just a country. So there's a huge diversity in habitat, in landscape, in terrain, and therefore in the wildlife that it can support. And I have had my little beady eye on all goings on this particular trip for quite some time. Northwest India's rare mammals. We were finally able to operate it about 2.5 years after we first launched it in November 2022. Now, our next departure is currently in development to go in November 2025, and traveling over India's winter months is quite deliberate. It's a small group size. Our rare mammals trips are popular wherever we offer them, whether it's Botswana, whether it's South Africa, but this particular trip concentrates in the semi-desert, very arid, grassland. There are rocky hills, there are salt pans galore, and if you look in the top left hand side of your screen, you'll see a few little paw prints that have just appeared. This is in the state of Gujarat, and the other state that we visit on this particular trip is Rajasthan. So we're talking semi-desert and all of the rare mammals that those deserts will support. We have 5 target cat species. I'm going to talk quite a lot about cats over the next half hour, 40 minutes or so. This absolute stunner is a leopard taking in the Jawai Hills in Rajasthan. So number 1 on our cat wish list for this particular trip will be leopard. Number 1 on my entire world's wish list is what we're also looking for, caracal. We're also going to be looking for jungle cat and a couple of other small desert dwelling cats as well. Desert wildcat, as pictured here, and the smallest cat in the world and endemic to this particular region, rusty spotted cat. Just look at those eyes. Wowee. In addition to the cats, we're also going to be looking for other creatures. I think you probably all know how much I love cats and big dogs and hyena, so hence why I've had my little eye on this trip. But striped hyena, other animals that we might see, Indian wolf or Indian grey wolf as it's sometimes known, also Asian golden jackal, also desert fox and Indian fox, which can only be told apart really by the colour on the tip of their tail, wild ass. This is the only surviving area in which the last population is found. Also black buck, which is a huge prey species for the many predators in this area, and nilgai and of course chinkara or Indian gazelle. So all of these are on the wish list, and our intrepid group sent out in November 2022. Tick number 1. They saw jungle cat en route to their very first destination. So we fly you into Delhi and then we're on to Ahmedabad. From there, we transfer you to the first destination, which is Velavadar, and en route they saw jungle cat. On their second day on the continent, they saw an awful lot more besides. So they weren't quite surprised already, I suppose, for the sheer number of blackbuck that would be seen. This is a very flat grassland area, brilliant for these gazelles. So huge numbers of blackbuck, wonderful horn structure that you can see there. And when you visit Velavadar, the apex predator predating on those blackbuck will be the Indian wolf. Day 2 on the subcontinent, they had wolves. Hurrah! Big tick! Very, very good start indeed. Now, these wolves are quite different to their northern hemisphere cousins. So they have adapted to these arid environments. Pack sizes tend to be much smaller, generally up to about 6, and it's quite common for them to actually hunt alone. They don't tend to roar, and what you'll find is that being a grassland area that they inhabit, that also means that there are a huge number of raptors. So for the birders amongst you, this Northwest India's rare mammals, it's not just about the mammals. There are also some hugely important birding sites that we will be visiting on the way. Isn't this a gorgeous, gorgeous shot? The next stop on the itinerary is to a little run of Kutch, which is an area in the far west of the country. And this is home to the last surviving population of wild ass, or Asiatic wild ass, locally known as Kur. Now, I love this image, just that dust. It's almost African in its feel, that dust. You can smell the atmosphere, the fighting going on between these males here. But this is also a hugely important wetland area. So although it's semi-desert, it is a Ramsar site due to the importance of water birds that use this area, particularly over the winter months, which is why we choose to go over this period. In addition, the wolves are denning over the winter months. So there, if we can find a den, there is a good chance of finding wolf pups as well as the adults. But in terms of birding, this is a hugely important area. They had some phenomenal raptor sites. And of course, they're there to feed on those water birds as well. But where the Little Run of Kutch really came into its own in our November 2022 group was with striped hyena, another one of our target animals. So striped hyena, what happened is our group on their first afternoon in this area, they went to a den site hoping to come across a den in use, and unfortunately that wasn't the case. So as is so often the case, perseverance pays off. They visited another den site in another part of the reserve the following day. As they approached the den, they saw a striped hyena and it ran off. So they quietly just settled themselves on the ground a suitable distance away from the den site, and they sat there, and said hyena came back, nestled down at its den entrance, and then just watched the group. So it was a case of them watching the hyena, watching them. Absolutely wonderful. Next stop on this itinerary. So we've been to the grasslands of Velavadar. We've moved on to Little Run of Kutch for wolves, hopefully, and hyena, and also various birds. Next up is an area called the Jawai Hills. And this has been on my radar for many, many years. The Jawai Hills are an area that are inhabited by a group of people that originally moved into this area from Iran. and they're called the ribaris. And in a world where human wildlife conflict is such a huge impact on wildlife populations, somehow in this part of the world, there is a sort of mutual respect. The ribaris very much see that the daytime is for them and the nighttime is for leopards, and it's a very rocky area, so you can get these superb photographic opportunities. And essentially, these are, you know, you have to be very, very lucky to get this sort of image, but this would be more typical. So very scrubby, rocky, full of crags, full of little caves, and essentially the people who will take you around here will generally know every leopard on a first name basis. Now, regardless of how you feel about whether animals should be named or not, this mutual respect that exists between people and leopards here. Priests will walk down from temples situated on the top of rock formations right past leopards. The leopards will leave them be. There is an awareness in the leopard that we are not a threat, and surely that has to be applauded, really. But you know, these caves just provide an amazing sanctuary for these leopards, meaning that Jawai Hills is well and truly on the map if you are a big cat lover and a leopard lover in particular. So Jawai is in Rajasthan. So we've left Gujarat behind us. We're now in Rajasthan. And the next stop on our itinerary, although it's a rare mammals trip, what you're looking at here is a demoiselle crane. You can go to Armenia to see these. You know, they are a migratory species. What we do is we basically spend a morning where you're not just hanging out with one or two of these things, you're actually hanging out with our group last year around about 5,000. But I believe that the highest number ever recorded is 15,000. If you can just imagine that against that backdrop of sand dunes, salt flats, unbelievable. And our final stop on this particular itinerary is to go to Desert National Park in Rajasthan. Funnily enough, in Desert National Park, we're going to be looking for desert fox. And our group last year was successful on numerous occasions in finding these adorable little creatures. And as well as that, Desert National Park is known as one of the best places to find the great bustard. So the great Indian bustard, or a GIB for short. So again, they had numerous success watching these with a kill, watching them with raptors and eagles basically right next to them waiting for the spoils. One of them was found with a sand snake, and there were a couple of steppe eagles just sitting there next to it, watching it eat. You can feel that pressure. It's going to come in for the kill. So, and they also were treated to a murmuration from rosy starlings, which would be really, really quite special. So did our Northwest India's Rare Mammals inaugural departure, did it adhere to expectations? Well, I would say that it exceeded expectations. So just a reminder that our next departure will be in November 2025. Group size is nice and small, from 4 to 8, and you will be concentrating your efforts on the far western side of the subcontinent in Gujarat and in Rajasthan, respectively. Now, if you're there, I don't know if you can see my cursor, which is on the peninsula of Gujarat, which is in the northwestern or top left-hand side of your screen, but this is where Sasam Gir National Park is located. So it would be very, very easy for us to arrange not only for you to join the Northwest India's Rare Mammals small group trip, but to then do an extension to Sasam Gir. And Sasam Gir is, of course, home to the only Asiatic lion population left. So that would be quite a nice little option, I reckon. So there we go. But moving on to the early part of this year, and again, another trip that had to be curtailed due to the pandemic. In February of this year, we were finally able to get off 2 departures of our India's Big Cat itinerary. This has got my name written all over it. So we have new departures scheduled for 2024 already out, and 2025 we are working on as we speak. Again, it's a very small group size. It does involve quite some travel, lots of domestic flights to get you from A to B, but my word, are the results worth it. We start up in the high Himalaya. So we fly from Delhi to Leh. We have 2 nights in Leh to acclimatise before then going on to the Uli Valley for snow leopards. So this is quite an ambitious itinerary. We start off looking for snow leopards in Ladakh, in Leh. After that, we head down to Sasangir that I've just mentioned, the only area in which it is now possible to find Asiatic lion. So big cat number 1, snow leopard. Big cat number 2, lion. You will also find leopard in Sasangir, but we also then continue on to Nagarhole National Park down in the south. And here we will have the potential to see tiger, of course, that's our big cat number 4, and leopard is here as well. So in terms of how the February this year departures went, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to hand over 2 images from clients who travelled with us on India's Big Cat, and also to one of the tour leaders. Before I do that, when I think of big cats, I think of Africa, and I don't think I'd be alone in thinking that. But did you know, you'll win a pub quiz for this one day, did you know that India, the country and the subcontinent, has 15 cat species alone? Nowhere else in the world can rival that. And I was walking the dog this morning, going along the beach going, Africa would be lion, leopard, cheetah, serval, caracal, African wildcat, black-footed cat. And I was just going through all of these cats in my head, and I was like, you're right. And then, of course, I went to South America, and I was like, jaguar, puma, margay, ocelot. And then I was like, blinking heck, India does. It's the winner, hands down. There are 15 different cat species. So our big cat itinerary is looking obviously for the big 4, which of course, as I've just mentioned, will be snow leopard, Asiatic lion, leopard, and tiger. But just ponder that, 15 cat species. Try and name them. There you go. Right. So we start up in Ladakh, as I've mentioned. So we'll have 2 nights in Leh. We will build in a little bit of sightseeing. There are some wonderful monasteries. There's also some great birding to be had in the vicinity of Leh. So we will spend 2 days there just acclimatizing, because from there we're going to go up again, and we're going to travel to the Uli Valley. This is the 2nd departure. This is taken by their tour leader, Swan. And I mean, just look at that crystal clear blue sky, turquoise glacial rivers, incredible topography, and of course, undisputedly, this is a Himalayan landscape with those wonderful prayer flags there. On this journey, you're going to start to see some of the quintessential land mammals and prey species for this area, whether it is ibex, whether it's walia, urial, you know, there's all sorts going on. We've got some wonderful images here, and these are coming in from the travellers on the group, the clients on the group. So thank you very much to Chris Hutchinson for this one. You will see, if you have a chance to look, that I've just labelled and just given the credit in the corner of each image to the person who took it, and there is a thank you at the end of the presentation as well. Another one here by Chris of Uriel. You can see that the snow is starting to come out here. And but just the topography, the landscapes, the way the light is hitting the snow, the animal, the curvature. And your days when you're here, you are high. So it is cold, you've got altitude, so we take it very easy. There are spotters out in the valleys. We will sometimes just wait in the lodge, waiting for news from the spotters. Sometimes we'll be going out in vehicles, and sometimes you will have beautiful crystal clear days like this. Sometimes it will be, more misty, more murky, more snowy, and so on. Picnics, cups of tea in the high Himalaya, as you do. This is them setting up for lunch. And the question, of course, everybody should be asking, did they see snow leopard? Yes, they did. Thank you very much to Simon Roberts for this image. Both groups were successful with snow leopard. One group had more than one instance. They had siblings fighting. They had snow leopards perched on the top of outcrops like you've got here. This was another one from Swan, the tour leader who is watching this snow leopard make its way down the slope. And there was one particular instance that stood out to me when I was reading through the tour reports for this particular trip. Tibetan wolves. So one group basically spent a couple of hours one morning just watching 3 or 4 wolves, 4 in this case, as you can see, sleeping. And that's all they were doing, just sleeping. So it was a waiting game, just watching. Again, a little later on, they got news that a snow leopard had been seen on the top of a ridge. They rushed to that ridge, and the snow leopard began to make its way down the ridge, and then suddenly just disappeared and literally just started walking in the opposite direction. And everyone's sitting there thinking, what the hell's that all about? You know, the snow leopard was there. There's ibex who are grazing underneath, completely and utterly blissfully unaware, and this snow leopard is slowly making its way towards them, and then suddenly just veers off in a different direction and stops. So you think, why? Suddenly there was a shout of wolf, wolf, and this now pack of 7 wolves goes charging off towards the now very aware ibex. And basically the young ibex by the adults are shepherded up onto the top of some tall boulders, whereby the wolves are just literally helpless, jumping up and down underneath with no way of getting these particular ibex. But imagine that you're just, there's a lot of time spent just waiting, of course, for snow leopard. But then suddenly to have a snow leopard fighting, photobombed essentially by a pack of 7 wolves. Wowzers! Yes, okay, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, Tibetan wolf, Indian wolf. We're seeing the canines as well as the felines, which is wonderful, wonderful news. We also heard that there was some quite exceptional birding. So Chukar partridge, look how fluffed up this is against the cold. What a gorgeous, gorgeous shot. This is again taken by Swan, the tour leader for one of the departures. And also what we've got here is a robin accentor. But there are some lovely birding to be had. And there are, other things going on if it's relatively quiet whilst you're waiting for news on snow leopards and so on. So, target species number 1 on this rather ambitious itinerary, tick. Next up, we're moving down to Gujarat and we're hoping for lion. Did they see lions? Both groups saw lion. So, thank you again. This is another image by Simon Roberts. So, thank you again to the clients on the trip who took this remarkable series of images. Swan, the tour leader. Look at this. We've got well-fed lions. We've got, oh, can you see me, lions? We've got youngsters with those wonderfully expressive faces, which is why I just love them so, so much. We've got groups of lions, not just from males together, but we also had cubs. One group had 17 different lions during the course of their stay. And, you know, I mean, absolutely beautiful. But again, the standout sighting from the tour report, and also from the minute images started coming through from our very obliging clients. Another one by Simon Roberts here. That young male doesn't look happy at all, does he? So he's clearly been in the wars. And if we take a look at another image of the same lion, with the female chasing him from behind, this one by Chris Hutchinson. So it's the same sighting. Essentially, they came across a female lion just lying in the road, rolling around, stretching luxuriously, just doing what lions do. Then a second lioness was seen. She was also quite relaxed. And then suddenly there was just all hell broke loose. And this young male fancied his charges, or fancied his chances. But what actually happened is this lioness had cubs, and she was protecting those cubs because their lives depended on her. Quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of that male lion. He's getting out of there, and apparently about 40 meters away from their vehicle, they started fighting, full-on fighting, and eventually he buggered off, licking his wounds, and the cubs lived for another day. So well done, Mum. Didn't she do well? Crikey. So, you know, did they see lion? Yes, they saw lion. They also saw leopard in Sasangir. And this stunning trio of images comes from Simon Roberts. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. You can just, again, humanizing, I know, but can you read the emotions on the face of this leopard? And those beautiful, cloudy, but clear eyes. And then she lay down and she was just, what are you then? Are you a threat? Are you a friend? Are you foe? Absolutely stunning. So snow leopard, tick. Asiatic lion, tick. Leopard, tick. Now we've got tiger to go on our India's big cats itinerary. But of course, when you're in somewhere like Sasangir, it's not just about the cats. When you're in anywhere, let's face it, it's not just about your target animals. You've also got a whole heap of other creatures waiting and wanting to be seen. Mugger crocodiles from Chris Hutchinson. I love these plum-headed parakeets also from Chris Hutchinson. Isn't that just the most gorgeous photograph? Talk about being in the right place at the right time. And the colour in what is normally, you know, deciduous tropical forest, very brown, lots of leaf litter, and then you suddenly just get this pop of colour and a little bit of love. So, on that note, let's move south to Nagarhole. And again, I shall ask the question, did they see tiger? Well, yes. Simon Roberts sent this through, just a partial view of a tiger. So how about this then? Full view. These cats are majestic. Talk about the money shot, another one from Simon here. These are just fabulous. So Nagarhole, like all the other national parks in India, it closes during the monsoon season. So this trip goes out in February. Most trips run to about April time, and then the monsoon starts to hit. So there's water around, but the temperatures can be warm, and therefore the tigers are not averse to having a lovely little cooling dip. Sometimes for two, which is really rather lovely. Sometimes you want to be in it and drinking it. Why not? But you've got action shots. You've got, you know, territorial marking shots. You've just got strolling shots. Look at the expression in that tiger's eyes. Oh, my God, it's absolutely incredible. And again, here, he is majestic. This, I think, is my favorite shot of the entire PowerPoint. I love this. Look at the clarity on those paws. You could track those paws down that road. He is magnificent. Oh, it gives me the chills. Oh, I love cats. Love them, love them, love them, love them, love them. Love them so much, I've just got to show you that image again. But anyway, I'm getting carried away, as always. So let's continue. Right, so they've got to Nagarhole, they've got the fourth cat, they've seen tiger, but they've also seen leopard here too. and not just any leopard. They're also seeing the infamous, almost, I'd say world famous, but that might be pushing it a little bit. Let's go with the wildlife worldwide famous black melanistic leopard of Nagarhole. So they saw him. Yowzers! So it really is India's big cat. So from the high Himalaya through to Sasangir for the cats, for the lions, down to Nagarhole. So we have got a departure scheduled for early next year. So if you're free in February, just let us know. Crikey, I would jump at that. And we are working on departures for 2025 as well. So yes, there's a lot of travel involved, but you've got to put in the effort sometimes in order to get the rewards. So nice small group size. If you're all about the big cats, you really don't want to be looking at any other trip. Phenomenal. India's big cat. Success? I say so. Yes. So what's next? Well, we've just been talking about the black melanistic leopard of Nagarhole. He put Nagarhole on the map for us. He was on the front of one of our brochures shortly before COVID, and crikey, demand to go and see this boy was huge. And before our departures, Nagarhole always tends to go from January through to April. So we have departures in place for next year and also for 2025 already. We have bookings on both years already. This is always a hugely popular trip. Small group size again. Nagarhole on the map is just appearing on the left-hand side of India as we speak. And the beauty of this trip is that you fly on British Airways non-stop from Heathrow to Bangalore, or Bengaluru as it's now called. You then transfer about 5 hours overland to Nagarhole, and then you park yourself there for 7 nights. So you're really not doing a huge amount of traveling. You're getting there, you're safarying, and that's it. That really appeals to a lot of people, myself included. So basically, Nagarhole's tigers, wild dogs, and leopards, because the melanistic black leopard is such a key draw point for this particular trip, we were slightly concerned because he's in his prime, he's been fighting, he's been around for quite a few years now, he's not going to go on forever. And we were slightly concerned that he hadn't been seen for some time. So we sent out an email to all clients booked to go to Nagarhole earlier this year in advance of their travel, just to set expectations and just say, we appreciate he was a big draw for booking the trip, but he hasn't been seen an awful lot since. So we just wanted to set that expectation so that people went knowing that there wasn't necessarily going to be a chance that he would be seen. Well, he was seen on quite a few departures, not everyone, I have to say, but he was seen on quite a few of our departures, not just on the big cats, but on the designated Nagarhole trip as well. Thank you to Ron Tyler for this particular image. And, so he's still alive and kicking, and long may that continue. But the name of the trip is Nagarhole's Tigers, Wild Dog, and Leopard. Did they see tiger? Oh, yes. I am now going to photobomb you with all sorts of images. Another one from Ron, thank you very much. This one is from Linda Shaw. Again, I'm going to give you all the credits at the end of the presentation, but these are all, this is from Julie Chalmers. I mean, just, you see tiger, you see big cats, but every time you see them, this is from Valerie McKinnon, every time you see them, the colouring is different, the background colouring is different, the skyscapes are different, the landscape is different. But just look at these shots. They are absolutely glorious. It is also about wild dogs, or dhole, the Indian wild dog. I love this particular shot from Julie. Thank you very much, Julie. In flight. In addition to that, we've got from Margaret Adams. Hello, Margaret. We've got this lovely shot stationary, but then we also had some really lovely interaction. And it's just gorgeous to see these creatures just, well, yeah, interacting with each other. So especially when there's lots of them, and especially when they're puppies. So thank you to everybody who sent in these remarkable shots, and of course the leopards, not just the melanistic one. I love this, Julie. Absolute corker of an image. Just look at the clarity, look at the colouring, and this one as well, of marking. I mean, it's just glorious. So every time the animal is doing something different, you get the masters of camouflage, as Ron has picked up with the colours here. And again, these are just splendiferous. Thank you, Jeff Adams, for this one. You know, we've just got some crackers. Rob German again and Diane Fennick, who gave us our cover image. So did they see leopard? They saw leopard, well and truly. But the thing with Nagarhole, and oh, looky. Who's this particular image by then? Thank you very much, Mr. Chris Breen. He travelled out with us earlier this year. He was a client for once. And so he went out to Nagarhole, this gorgeous tusker. The thing about Nagarhole is that there are very open grasslands, but on top of that, you've got the deciduous forest as well. So you go out on river safaris, and you also go out on vehicle safaris, because the number of vehicles allowed in this park is heavily, heavily policed. So that means that there is not necessarily the rush you might get in other parts of India, but just that mixture of terrain. You can get these wonderful open areas. We had tigers being turned on by their prey, gaur chasing after tigers. We had gaur fighting each other. We had reports from other clients of just wonderful, you know, sort of incidences and experiences with tuskers. And in central India, no disrespect to the Central India National Parks at all, but you don't get the ellies. You might see the odd working elephant, but Nagarhole, you will have elephant encounters, or we very much hope that you will have elephant encounters. As in central India, there are also sloth there. This is another by Mr. C. Breen. So thank you very much. Who doesn't want to see Baloo? Oh my God. Every time I see this image, I start singing the bare necessities. Anyway, yeah, fighting gaur. I mean, just wonderful other wildlife. So Margaret Adams sent through these wonderful langurs, but there's primates galore. So these are all client images that you could be taking, or, you know, even if you're not a photographer, you could be experiencing this wonderful wildlife. There wouldn't be predators if there was no prey. Even the chital are absolutely gorgeous and getting a clean here, being deticked. We've got some incredible images that came through, you know, minor birds, smooth coated otter. Look at this, bad hair day. I know how he feels. But Malabar giant squirrels, there's so much to see down here. So this is a striped neck mongoose. We've got secretive creatures. We've got ectothermic creatures. We've got wonderful, wonderful bird life. This again, you know, is a client image that has come through. Ron Tyler sent through this Brahmini kite, grey-headed fish eagle. We've got, you know, the cleaner uppers that you need to have. Fighting, look at that. It's just brill. So much colour, and it's just, India is great. And this particular image, this is called a tiger. I love that. So we've gone from the big tiger, the iconic species, through to the small, and they all have their place. They're all valid, and that's the beauty of India. There is just so much to see, including, as the sun goes down, wonderful cormorants, and then you sit there with a cold beer and you just take it all in. So Nagarhole's tigers, wild dogs and leopards, if you want the predators and elephants and all the other host of species as well, then have a look at coming with us in early 2024 or early 25, British Airways to Bengaluru, transfer to the lodge, and that's it, you're there. So there's not so much travel involved, which is a real bonus. So that really just leaves me with our very final trip that I'm going to talk about. I'm not really going to talk about it very much at all, because it really speaks for itself. We offer our ultimate tiger safari, and that happens in central India, across Bandhavgarh National Park and Kanha National Park, and there is also an extension possible to Tadaba. But in fact, we can tailor make extensions to any of the other national parks in that area. Ranthambore, sorry, not Ranthambore, we're not going there, we're going to Bandhavgarh. I think I need a beer. And Bandhavgarh is generally considered as having the highest density of tiger of any reserve in India. Kana, I saw tiger there, so it's just somewhere that I feel a particular special affinity to. It's a stunningly beautiful park. 19, minimum 19 tiger sightings on one ultimate tiger safari that went out this year. So we normally offer a couple of departures. Both of them depart in February. We've got them in place already for 2024 and 2025. That involves flying into Delhi initially, then getting a flight into central India, and then transferring between the parks. But again, it's not as intensive as some of the other travel that we see on the other trips, but it is reliable. So if tiger is your key focus, brilliant. That and Nagarhole I can thoroughly recommend. So I have gone over, oh crikey, sorry, 18 minutes past 8. I'm so sorry. So yes, a little bit longer than the 30-40 minutes, but I think we all expect that by now. But I would like to say a huge thank you to all of these people who have provided us with the incredible imagery. I hope that it's inspired you, because this is what they saw. So it could be what you see if you are looking to add India to your wish list. We also offer a Nagarhole photo safari. So that is a dedicated departure led by a wildlife photographer. So if you wanted to enhance your skills in situ, that would be another great option to consider. But quite frankly, India's wildlife is legendary. The e-visa has long been back. There's no reason not to go. It's brilliant. 10 hours away from the UK. Easy peasy. Do it, do it, do it. And on that note, there we are. I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I'm going to hope that Chris Bryon is coming back to us. There we are. Phew. And I'm going to ask you if you have any questions.
Look, there was no danger of falling asleep in that presentation, was there? Crikey. I feel like I've done a workout. It's ridiculous. You're completely mad as a hatter.
I know, don't I?
To the many of you that are on board, can you imagine working with Helen? We have to listen to this all the time about everywhere that she's ever been. It's amazing. Anyway, Helen, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. That's really, really brilliant. Aren't we lucky to have such well, generous photographers that travel with us.
Yeah.
Fantastic photographers that travel with us. The images were tremendous, absolutely tremendous.
I really was quite overwhelmed because, you know, we haven't really kind of approached it from this perspective before. When we're putting together these trips, as you and I know, we usually use our own images, or, you know, we have a library of images. And basically when it was like, well, why don't we ask clients, you know, if they're happy to use theirs. And my gosh, I mean, I was literally bombarded with emails, which was just incredible, with all these links and all these wonderful images. And they just inspire you to want to go. I'm desperate to go back now.
I know, it's a fantastic country, as you know, and as you mentioned. I went to Nagarhole earlier on this year. You said I went as a client. It was kind of that was very nice of you. I didn't really go as a client, but I went in place of a client who had for one reason or another, I don't know what the reason was, but had to cancel. So seemed an awful shame to waste the opportunity. So I went out. I was one of the ones that actually didn't see a Blackie.
Okay.
However, we did have spectacular sightings of Indian wild dog, Dolly. And spectacular views of tiger. I mean, unbelievable views of tiger and spectacular views of leopard. It was wonderful. And if anybody on board hasn't been to Nagarhole, I suspect there are a number of you that haven't. I would wholeheartedly recommend it because it is the most fantastic national park. It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
So
I'm glad you enjoyed it, because you'd also tried to go pre-COVID, hadn't you? And that, and it was just as the world went into lockdown. And so it's worth the wait. If India has been on your radar, and obviously people are still catching up on trips post-pandemic, but it is worth the wait.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong there. I mean, along with a number of others, of course, I was due to have been on that trip that was going to depart from the UK on Friday, the 13th of March, 2020.
Yeah.
I think all travellers to India departing after something like 1 o'clock in the afternoon on that day were going to be denied access, and our flight was due to leave at 13:30 or something.
Oh.
So anyway,
yeah.
by the by.
Yeah.
Let's just have a think about one or two things. We've had a number of questions, as you can imagine, and I think they are things that we should address. So look, first and foremost, if you were going on a trip like this, one could say this for any trip, in actual fact. If you're going on a trip like this and you were taking a camera with you and you were taking binoculars with you, I've just got to chuck it out there. Binoculars, right? What would you take?
Take binoculars, that's for sure.
There you go.
I mean, ultimately,
you'd be very foolish not to travel with.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, I mean, Swarovskis are pretty much known as being the top that you can get. If your budget doesn't stretch to that, just make sure that you get 10 by 42s, so that you've got a decent field of vision. Cameras, for any wildlife trip, we recommend a zoom of 1 to 400. That's perfect for most wildlife trips. Snow leopard, you probably want to consider something longer, maybe a 600 mil. They can be on a ridge on the other side of a valley. But your general, I would say, 1 to 400 really.
Brilliant. So one or two people have asked questions about the rare mammals trip in northwestern India. And the key question actually that I've had from 2 or 3 different people is about climate. Would you mind kind of chucking in 1 or 2 thoughts on that?
We're going layers essentially, because we are going over the Indian winter months, but we are relatively flat, and we're not at altitude in those areas, and it does get hot. So November is the changeover in terms of the monsoon is normally up to a sort of October time, and then November is a key time to travel to Rajasthan. So it will be pleasantly warm during the day. It might even get quite hot during the day, but it is a desert, so it can get chilly at night. So you definitely really just want layers. That's the way forward.
And I think perhaps just to elaborate on that a little bit, the technical gear that we can get these days is absolutely fantastic, but some kind of lightweight puffy jacket that squishes down to almost nothing.
Exactly.
You can pop in your bag, and you've got it if you need it. It's that kind of thing you need, isn't it?
And you'll need it for to and from UK anyway. So yeah, exactly. They weigh nothing. They, as you say, they scrunch down. So a windproof is always useful. So an outer layer that can just be a thin shell, but that's fine. Yeah.
Cool. I'm actually just as part of this, I know this is a sort of a Q&A session. I'm actually just going to read a note from Peter, who has commented. I went on the red panda, snow leopard and tiger trip at the end of 2022, which was rescheduled from 2021. It was terrific. The gorgeous pandas were seen in Nepal, but right on the Indian border. There were some great sightings of tigers in Kanha, but the snow leopard was in a little distant on the ridgeline. And I think actually that's a rather a good summing up, isn't it? Because with snow leopards, being what they are, I mean, 10 years ago, there was absolutely no chance of seeing snow leopards. Now we're seeing them on the trips. I personally haven't seen them. I don't think you have either.
No.
I may be wrong. But But when they are being seen, they're distant. I don't think that makes it any less amazing. It still makes it a fantastic sighting of an incredible animal that actually, until recently, we weren't able to see.
But I think also on our trip, until fairly recently, you had to camp if you were going up to the Ladakh side to look for them. But now we have Snow Leopard Lodge that we use on our India Big Cats itinerary. We also use it with Nick Garbett on photographic trips. And it does mean that, you know, some of the rooms have ensuite facilities. It's very, very simple. They do have hot water at certain times of day. They do, you know, so it's a very simple, almost like a homestay type arrangement almost. It's a small lodge, but you can do it in a little bit more comfort. And you can set up your scope in the lounge there and just look out the window and you never say never. So, yes, you know, chances are what you will see will be at some distance, but the fact is you're seeing it, and a very few, you know, small percentage of people do actually get to see it. I've also just seen that there was a question actually about red pandas with snow leopards. So normally to see red pandas, we would send you to a place called Singalila National Park, which is actually on the northeastern side of the country. So if you're in the snow leopard vicinity, you would fly back to Delhi, and then normally we would fly you out to the Darjeeling area and then take you up to a little place called Harbour's Nest from there. Harbour's Nest is a lodge that is on the Nepalese and Indian border, and that's where we send you to look for red panda. At the moment, that border is shut. So what we're doing at the moment is we would fly you to Kathmandu, and then from Kathmandu, you get a domestic flight and then a road transfer to that same lodge, to Harbour's Nest. So you can combine snow leopard with red panda, but it just involves a few more flights now.
I was actually going to raise that, Helen. I was going to pose the question, in actual fact, about red pandas and red pandas as an extension to perhaps other things that we do in India. Yeah. Because I think the reality is, I mean, that's the sort of, I mean, that is the kind of extension we can organise to any of the trips that we offer in India.
Oh, yeah.
Assuming the time of year is
absolutely
right.
Yeah, we can do an entirely tailor-made trip, or you can go on to one of the group trips that I've mentioned and then do a tailor-made extension from that. It's really we've got great partners out in India, and we can put together whatever trip you fancy, definitely.
So I think perhaps I shall pose one further question, but perhaps also ask you to go on to that final slide, which, as you reminded me earlier in the day,
I always need to be prompted. Right, hang on. Okay, yeah, go for it.
That's good. So I was just going to ask you one final question, which was that which has been posed by one of the people on board this evening, which is about I guess kind of sort of the human interaction with wildlife, and the fact that going to see wildlife, let's say tigers, leopards and so on in India is rather different than going to see leopards, lions, elephants and so on in Southern Africa or East Africa, in terms of the number of people around. The parks in India are known to be busy, right? And does that make them any less good than some of the parks that we enjoy wonderful wildlife viewing in Southern Africa or elsewhere? Have you got any thoughts on that?
I think there are. India does sometimes have a bit of a reputation in terms of the fact that they allow things like canters, which sort of take 20, 25 people around in a big open top lorry. I can understand that they would allow that because it might allow a local population access to wildlife that they would otherwise just see as something that is open to foreigners, really. But I think it's somewhere like Nagarhole, you know, they have such strict controls that you have to do one vehicle safari, one boat safari on a daily basis, because they limit the number of vehicles in any one area. Other national parks have different ways of doing it. They do zones, or they do one-way systems. I think if you really want to avoid, you know, sort of too many other people, Nagarhole is definitely the place to go. Potentially Satangir as well, because it's slightly off the beaten track. But obviously there's no tiger there, so people are going there to look for lion and leopard. But I think ultimately you just have to, you know, if you are fortunate enough to be able to go and to enjoy sightings, just enjoy them. You know, if there are other people in the sighting, that could happen anywhere in the world. I think, you know, it's all how you deal with it, really. So, but yeah, if you want to avoid the crowds, then Nagarhole is the way forward.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there were one or two sightings that we had in Nagarhole where there were quite a few other vehicles, to be fair, but by no means all of them. In actual fact, when we were looking at wild dogs in Nagarhole, we didn't have anyone. I think we had 2 or 3 sightings on at least one of them. I think we had nobody with us at all. We actually stopped looking at the wild dogs after 45 minutes or so. We hadn't had anybody with us. Absolutely fantastic. The tiger sightings, we did have others. I guess my response to that is not dissimilar to yours. It's a different experience, basically. And I don't think it's any less of an experience. It is just a different experience.
Yes.
And it is equally wonderful. You know, the sightings of tigers, the sightings of leopards, the sightings of wild dogs, incredible bird life, amazing elephants. It's a fantastic experience. It's just different.
Yeah.
So, Helen, I think we should probably let these good people abandon ship, shall we say?
Yeah.
I will be back online again next week.
Yeah, exactly. Before we tell them that you're up next on the 9th of November.
Yeah. I am sure I won't have as many attendees as you. You are the star of the show. But I will be back on board next week on the 9th of November to talk about Zambia, with a particular bent, I have to say, on walking safaris, which is something I feel very passionately about. Where's your next trip to, Helen?
Zambia, with you. Well, not with you per se, with 40 other people and you.
Lots of other people.
Yeah, Festival of Wildlife.
Yeah. It's going to be good.
I can't
Helen,
wait.
Thank you so much. That was just and thank you everybody for being on board this evening. We really appreciate you taking your time, your spare free time to spend it with us. So thank you so much. We'll see you again next week, hopefully.
Yeah. Bye. Thank you.